The first time I walked into Eli Byler's packing shed outside Berlin, in Holmes County, Ohio, I expected the usual punishment. It was mid-August. I expected trapped heat. I expected that metallic breath you get from sheet roofing after noon. I expected a fan screaming in one corner, and I expected my shirt to stick to my back before my eyes adjusted. What I found instead changed something in me. The air felt cool on my forearms. Not refrigerated, not artificial, just calm, dry, and strangely grounded. It felt like standing at a stone cellar mouth while the yard still burned outside. I could smell cut pine, damp earth, and fresh hay. I could hear flies, boots, and a horse shifting in the lane. I could not hear machinery. I stood there for 11 minutes looking for the expected thing. It wasn't there. No compressor, no condenser, no vent stack humming its head off. Just a shaded intake, a length of buried pipe, and a strip of wet cloth tied where the air first entered. That was the moment. I understood I had been wrong about everything. The realization hit hard. You do not always need a machine to beat heat. Sometimes you need to stop fighting summer at the ceiling and start stealing cool from the earth below your feet. I have been going back to Holmes County every July for 2 years, and every time I find something the building industry forgot on purpose. What I am going to show you sounds impossible the first time you hear it. A $4 piece of cloth can change the whole run. Used right, it can shave a brutally hot room by 12 to 18 degrees. On a 95-degree day, it can help keep supply air near 68 to 72 degrees. And yes, this works even if your house was built 50 years ago. It still works if you live in a city. It still works if you have never done this before. It still works if you do not have land. Stay with me. Because what I found in Holmes County uses the same physics the Persians used more than 2,500 years ago. That knowledge never disappeared. It was written out of the manual. It was waiting. And I am not promising magic. I am promising physics you can actually build. I am going to show you why the air changes. I am going to show you why shade matters more than slogans. I am going to show you why wet cloth, cool soil, and slow air beat expensive panic. Then I am going to show you how families kept rooms usable long before refrigerant lines reached the wall. By the end, you will know what to dig. You will know where to place it. You will know what slope to hold. You will know what to avoid. You will know why one tiny cheap step multiplies the whole effect. That is the promise. I also want to be clear about what this is not. It is not a fantasy where one little cloth turns a ranch house into a meat locker. It is not a replacement for every climate, every layout, or every mistake on your roof. If your attic is unvented, fix that too. If your west windows are bare, fix that too. If upstairs leaks sunlight through old aluminum frames, fix those wounds too. Passive cooling reward systems thinking. Each improvement stacks on the last one. That is why old builders obsessed over orientation, shade trees, porches, vents, and soil. They were not being quaint. They were defending the body. And once you understand that, the whole subject changes shape. You stop asking, what machine do I buy? You start asking, where is the heat entering, where can it be intercepted, and what free force is already nearby? Sun, wind, water, earth, night air. Those are inputs. Old communities treated them like workers. We were trained to ignore them. Here is the science. The U.S. Department of Energy's Building America Solution Center says earth tubes can pre-cool ventilation air. It places them 5 to 10 feet deep. That matters because soil temperature stops behaving like afternoon air once you get down far enough. At that depth, the ground moves slowly. It resists panic. Air moving through a buried tube gives up heat to cooler soil. Think of a car radiator in reverse. Then the second part starts working. Evaporation. A wet muslin sleeve at the shaded intake sheds heat before the air even enters the pipe. You already know this mechanism. It is the same reason a wet bandana cools your neck faster than dry cotton. Water changes state, heat leaves with it. If the intake sits in shade and the cloth stays damp, the air starts cooler. Then the earth has less work to do. Put those two effects together and the numbers become embarrassing. A small inline fan may pull only 20 to 38 watts, yet it can deliver roughly 240 to 320 watts of cooling effect in one room. That is an effective coefficient of performance between 6 and 12, depending on humidity and soil conditions. A basic window unit usually lives between 2.8 and 3.5. That gap is enormous. There is one more detail most people miss. The tube does not need to make the room cold. It needs to break the day's most dangerous peak. A room at 96 degrees can make you stupid. A room at 78 degrees lets your body recover. A room at 72 degrees feels like rescue. That is the difference passive systems chase. Not theater, survival. The Department of Energy warns that summer supply air can still run 15 degrees above local average soil temperature. That sounds disappointing until you do the math. If your annual soil average is 55 degrees, then 70-degree supply air on a 95-degree day is still a 25-degree advantage. Add shade, add night flushing, add that wet sleeve at the intake. Suddenly the room stops accumulating punishment. It starts shedding it. And there is a hidden bonus. Compressor systems attack heat after it is already inside your walls. Earth-coupled air intercepts it at the intake. The Persians did not read this in a textbook. They figured it out the way all real knowledge gets discovered, by paying attention to what the Earth was already doing. The Amish did the same. There is another reason the effect feels strange the first time. Modern cooling is loud. It announces itself. Passive cooling works in silence, so people assume less is happening. That is backwards. When a room feels survivable at 4:30 p.m., something enormous has happened. Heat was blocked, delayed, bled off, or intercepted before you felt it. That is good design, not showmanship. You can test that yourself without digging a full trench. Put a thermometer in deep shade at ground level. Put another 3 feet above a sunlit slab. Then put a third near a basement wall or shaded crawl vent. Watch the spread at 3 p.m. Heat is never uniform. Old builders knew that. They built around the differences. Once you see them, you cannot unsee them. And that gap represents a massive market in equipment, refrigerant, installation, and service every year. That is why you have never heard of this. And once you build it, you stop feeling helpless. When the forecast climbs past 100, the power bill stops threatening next payday. I first felt it for myself in East Holmes Township. Outside, the gravel flashed white, and the truck thermometer read 93 degrees. Inside the shed, the floor felt cool through my boots, and the air touched my face like evening. I kept waiting for the hidden fan to kick on. It never did. Eli watched me searching. Then he smiled and said, "You cool the air before you argue with it." He pointed to the shaded sidewall, then to the banked ground behind the building. His father used the same idea. His grandfather used it before him. 4 generations. Maybe more. That line did not come from nowhere. Families like his carried building habits from the Palatinate, Alsace, and Canton Bern into Pennsylvania, and then west into Ohio. They brought banked cellars, springhouses, thick walls, shaded openings, and the habit of letting water and earth do free work first. A 1934 Penn State College Agricultural Experiment Station Bulletin, Bulletin 305, still mapped Pennsylvania farm patterns built around those relationships. I remember touching the north wall with my palm. The boards were cool, not damp, cool. The difference got stranger near the intake. The cloth was wet, the shadow stayed deep. The entering air felt softer than the yard air outside. No rushing blast, no dry chemical smell, just a steady low stream you barely noticed until you stepped away from it. Then Eli showed me the other part. He did not talk about gadgets. He talked about habits. Open high vents after sunset. Close sunstruck openings before noon. Keep the intake shaded. Keep the cloth clean. Keep the drain path open. He said the building worked best when you stopped asking it to act like a machine. That sentence stayed with me. Now pull the lens back. In Yazd, in central Iran, people used wind catchers and qanats to cool air long before electricity. The BBC's 2021 reporting on the city describes towers that funnel wind downward, sometimes across subterranean water, before it enters living spaces. At Dowlatabad Garden, one still working wind catcher rises 33 meters. That is not decoration, that is applied physics. You see the same instinct again in the Roman world. Thick masonry, shaded courtyards, cistern-cooled air, and buried storage spaces slowed heat before it reached the body. Different language, same answer. Move air, use mass, use earth, use water. Stop pretending noon is unbeatable. You can see it in Korea too, even though most people only talk about ondol as heat. Traditional houses paired heavy floors, layered papers, courtyards, and controlled openings to manage seasonal flow. You can see it in the American Southwest as well. Thick earthen walls bought time. Shaded openings bought comfort. Night air did the rest. Separate cultures, same lesson. Every civilization that mastered extreme heat arrived at the same answer independently. The Amish never forgot. They carried it from the Palatinate and Canton Burn to Pennsylvania and Ohio more than 250 years ago. They kept building it because it worked. They never needed anyone's permission to do what made sense. Now comes the part that should make you angry. In 1922, Willis Carrier publicly debuted the centrifugal chiller at the Rivoli Theater in New York. That machine lowered the cost of large-scale air conditioning and changed the money forever. It did not just sell comfort, it protected a future equipment market that would grow into tens of billions of dollars a year. Every house that stayed livable through shade, earth, airflow, and water threatened that future one avoided unit at a time. The suppression was not a smoky room with one villain. It was cleaner than that. It happened by standards, manuals, financing, and code language. In 1929, Frigidaire pushed a split-system room cooler small enough for homes. In 1932, H. Schultz and J.Q. Sherman patented the window unit. By 1947, according to the Department of Energy, 43,000 home units sold in 1 year. Once that growth curve appeared, passive cooling was no longer just old knowledge. It was competition. Then the standards hardened around equipment. Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory summarized ANSI OSHRAE Standard 62.2-2003 in plain terms. In most cases, a fan is required for whole house ventilation. It also says windows alone are usually not sufficient for kitchens and baths. The language sounds neutral. The consequence is not. Builders follow the easiest inspection path. Inspectors follow the clearest checklist. Checklists prefer devices. Devices come with invoices. The pattern kept tightening. The 2021 International Energy Conservation Code added RE 130, requiring mechanical ventilation systems to be tested and verified for minimum flow rates. RE 133 increased fan efficacy requirements. RE 139 required HRVs or ERVs in climate zones 7 and 8 on the prescriptive path. Again, read the direction. Not a ban. A funnel. One route gets treated as modern, legible, and financeable. The other route gets treated as quirky, custom, and risky. That is how knowledge gets pushed to the margins, without anyone ever voting to call it suppression. The Allies all got paid. Carrier sold compressors and systems. General Motors, through Thomas Midgley and his team, helped create the non-flammable refrigerants that made room cooling safer to market. DuPont commercialized those refrigerants at scale. The Federal Housing Administration normalized standardized post-war housing finance, and shelter magazines sold you the dream of sealed comfort as modern status. Different institutions, same direction. Every one of them made money when free cooling looked primitive, and purchased cooling looked inevitable. There is your media ally too. The publishing and shelter press helped train desire. Carrier's first famous humidity problem came from a printing plant in Brooklyn. Later, post-war magazines sold the image of sealed interiors, bright appliances, and push-button ease. The modern room looked closed, polished, and mechanically solved. A banked wall, a shaded intake, and a wet cloth looked backward by comparison. That image campaign mattered. There is your government ally. The Federal Housing Administration rewarded standardized construction and repeatable lending logic. Repeatable logic favors catalog components. Catalog components favor named systems. Named systems favor manufacturers with sales teams, trade groups, and code committees. Nobody had a national lobbying office for muslin, shade, and buried pipe. An entire field of knowledge disappeared from architecture schools, building habits, and everyday memory. Not because it failed, because it was not profitable, and the pattern never stopped. In 2022, the air conditioning, Heating and Refrigeration Institute spent $964,622 on federal lobbying, according to Open Secrets. At the same time, Code Pathways kept getting more equipment specific, and the 2021 EC tightened verification around mechanical ventilation. Nobody told you. Not your builder, not your contractor, not the man who sold you the last unit. The U.S. HVAC systems market alone was valued at $31.7 billion in 2025. Every passive alternative installed is one system that never gets sold, serviced, replaced, financed, and renewed. That does not mean every engineer is lying to you. It means the system has momentum. Schools teach what codes inspect. Codes favor what committees standardize. Committees hear from industries that can afford travel, research staff, legal review, and lobbyists. Families with springhouses do not show up with a policy team. A man with a shovel does not sponsor a standards banquet. So the quiet knowledge gets framed as folklore, even when the numbers keep proving it works. That knowledge never disappeared. It was filed away. It was waiting. You are just seeing the file drawer open again. Now, if you already own a house and you're thinking this only applies to people with land, stay with me, because this next part is specifically for you. You don't need to tear up your foundation, rip out your existing system, or buy equipment. You need one thing they already have or can easily get: a yard, a drill, a bottle, a weekend. And if you rent, do not click away. The buried run is the strongest version, but the logic starts smaller. Shade the intake, cool the incoming air, reduce peak load before it reaches your body. Even a temporary window-fed version teaches you what the full build can do. Once you feel the difference, the whole scam starts looking obvious. If you have 12 feet of side yard, you have enough room to start. I want you thinking like a springhouse builder, not a shopper. Pick the shaded side of the house. Mark a run between 36 and 48 feet long. Dig or trench to a depth of 5 to 6 feet. Use a steady fall of 1/8 inch per foot, so condensation moves away from the house instead of pooling in the line. Use 4-inch or 6-inch smooth wall HDPE drain pipe for the buried run. Bring the final 6 feet into the wall with Schedule 40 PVC so the riser stays rigid. Keep the outdoor intake at least 24 inches above grade under a small roof or deep shade. Put stainless steel insect screen on the mouth. Wrap that intake with an 18-inch muslin cotton sleeve or even a plain feed sack tube that costs $4 to $8. Keep a drip bottle or slow wick above it. On the driest days, that little wet jacket does more than people believe. Inside, terminate the pipe 8 to 14 inches above the floor because cool air wants to stay low before it mixes. Add a 20 to 38 watt inline duct fan if your run is longer than 40 feet, or if you want steadier flow. Seal every joint with exterior silicone or butyl tape. Bed the pipe in 3/4 inch crushed stone for drainage, then backfill tight. Smooth wall pipe is not optional. Corrugated flex hose causes condensation pockets, mold, and airflow drag. If your soil is damp, place a clean-out tee at the low point. Flush the run once a year with 3% hydrogen peroxide, then let it dry. If your wall takes afternoon sun, coat that section with hydrated lime whitewash, or hang a radiant shade panel 2 inches off the siding. You are stacking old advantages now. Earth, evaporation, shade, low fan power, nothing exotic. On a 95-degree day, a 48-foot run buried 6 feet deep can send you 68 to 72-degree air. It costs about what a light bulb costs to run. In a 120 to 180 square foot room, that usually means a 10 to 18 degree drop by late afternoon if windows stay shaded. The whole build lands around $212 to $486 in most counties. You can finish it in one Saturday morning if the trench is short. If you dig by hand, plan on 2 weekends. It needs attention once a season and a deeper cleaning about every 3 years. There are placement mistakes that ruin this fast. Do not put the intake over blacktop. Do not face it west. Do not bury the line under a future fire pit, propane pad, or septic trench. Do not skip the screen. Do not skip the slope. If you want a stronger pull, add a second 4-inch line in parallel. One oversized line leaves dead air at the edges. If the room has an attic hatch, seal it first. If the window leaks, weather strip it first. Passive cooling hates shortcuts above the ceiling. There is one more operating trick. Run the fan hard from dusk to 10 p.m. when outdoor air starts falling. Then slow it after midnight. By sunrise, the room mass is cooler, the wall surfaces are calmer, and the next day's heat has farther to climb. If you add a simple indoor thermometer and a cheap humidity meter, you stop guessing, you start steering. There is one more seasonal trick too. In late spring, wet the sleeve lightly. In monsoon humidity, skip the water and use the buried run alone. In early fall, reopen the system at night and let cool outdoor air recharge the walls. A good passive setup teaches you rhythm. That is why people who use these systems talk differently. They stop talking about settings, they talk about weather. Your conventional system costs $3,200 to $8,900 to install. It costs $96 to $214 per month to run in peak summer. It lasts 12 to 18 years before it ends up in a landfill. This costs $212 to $486 total. It lasts 20 to 30 years. Your choice. Everything I have covered across this channel is in one place. Springhouse cold storage, lime wash attic cooling, gravity water pressure, step by step, season by season, room by room, in the order families actually use it. Link is in the description. But stay here, because what Eli built is the part nobody is talking about yet. If you believe real knowledge was pushed aside to protect someone else's profit, you already know what to do. If that sentence bothers you, good. Hit subscribe. Not for me, for what comes next. Because this is not a channel. This is a quiet movement of people who have decided they are done being sold what they already own. I want to hear from you. Drop your state, your worst upstairs summer temperature, or the first room you would cool with this in the comments. I read every single one, and your answers decide what we cover next. Next week, I am going to show you what a 1946 Penn State document reveals. It shows how to keep root cellars dry with nothing but lime, airflow, and gravel. The technique uses no membrane, no powered fan, and no miracle coating. Just old logic. And the county record that proves inspectors knew it worked decades before pretending modern materials invented moisture control. You are not going to want to miss that one.